Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.
Last month, Chile's President Boric announced that the government would have majority control over every new lithium operation. I'm with Henk Friday Alphen. He is CEO of Wealth Minerals, and he says that the new rules have cleared up ambiguity in the lithium sector in Chile. Henk, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you very much for having me.
I really want to talk about what is happening in Chile in a moment, but first, maybe talk about Wealth Minerals. What are you focused on, Henk?
Okay, Wealth Minerals has been actually in Chile for 6-7 years now, and we obviously have focused on lithium in Chile, but we were very fortunate right in the beginning to get a fairly large piece, 46,000 hectares of the Atacama salar. So, that is obviously one of the most valuable projects in the world. So for us, it was obviously very important to see this whole thing through. And we have seen 3 administrations, so this is the 3rd administration. And luckily, Mr. Boric came out with new regulations, which would then now allow us at least to move forward on those projects.
You're working towards a PA, is that correct?
Yeah, we are working towards a PA on the Ollagüe project. That's the one we actually have drilled so far. So we have about 1.4 million tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So we will get a PEA out in hopefully less than 2 months. It depends a little bit on we have a deal with a company called FLSmidth, and they are in charge of picking the right direct lithium extraction technology. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a little bit where the PEA is hung up, let's say, to make sure we identify the right technology, and then as soon as we have, then we will put out a PEA on Ollagüe, which will look like 20,000 tons for 25 years, kind of, that's kind of the numbers floating around so far.
So Wealth Minerals, you have the flagship, which is different, which is in the Atacama, but the Ollagüe is the one that looks like it's more production ready, or like has a quicker production path than the one that you're working on the PA right now.
Yeah, so we can, now with the new regulations that have come in, it's obviously up to the government, because the government is fairly keen, obviously, with these new regulations to show the world that they're going to be open to get lithium projects to move forward. I mean, there hasn't been anything happened in the last 6 years. So this government has decided, okay, we may have to give up a majority, but at least there's a way to move forward. So they're very keen on getting stuff happening ASAP. So for us, it's moving this forward as quickly as we can. We have to, part of the new regulations also make sure that you have a deal with the local people there, the indigenous. So we have been, we've actually have very good relationships with them. So that's part of the process of moving forward. But hopefully with all this push moving, I would like to think that we can possibly get this into a production scenario in, let's say, 3 years, 4 years, pushing of course for 3, but I'm the CEO and wants to push much faster than maybe the reality is. But, we could maybe get 3 years, at least we will have a pilot plant operational. So we will be producing some lithium, let's say. Full production may be more like 4 years away, but short-term production, 3 years.
Talk about the rules that Boric put in, because when they were introduced, there was a sharp sell-off with the lithium miners, especially the ones that had lithium projects that were based in Chile. Also, there was some of the analysis that was coming out still was that these regulations still seem a little uncertain right now. And then also, if you're bringing in these actors like government, where you're having to talk about majority control, are you going to be able to get the government institutions to move quick enough for be able advancing it? So I guess all these questions, why are you bullish right now, actually, the introduction of these regulations?
For us, it was always, the lithium is a strategic mineral in Chile. So that was always the issue. And this is, as I said, this is the 3rd government we've been with now. And when I first went there, it was the Bachelet government, and the Minister of Mines at that time says, oh yeah, we're going to be changing the regulations so private companies can move forward. Then we had the Minera government, which was a right-wing government, and we were all dancing in the street thinking, Now we're going to be moving things forward. Nothing happened in his tenure whatsoever. So Boric finally is actually coming up with something. Is 51-49 the best deal in that you can think of? No, but it's, at least for us, it's a way forward. What the negative reaction in the marketplace, it was twofold. First of all, headlines. Lithium is being nationalized in Chile, which is really not true at all. This 49-51 has been advertised for a long, long time. That's just to get around the strategic part of lithium. Yeah, and they don't have control of the government, so they have to find a way to get around it. So it's been what is negative, and where the media has been very negative, is that most banks and the focus has always been SQM Albemarle.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now SQM and Albemarle are being affected by the fact that Boric just says they have to start sitting down with Codelco, and Codelco is going to be a partner in the new way forward. And the market didn't like that, because now you're in a situation where suddenly Codelco is going to be in, and nobody really knows what that means. Because now they don't really have any ownership of the projects themselves. They have it on the license of Corfo, who owns the land. So how is Codelco and Corfo going to work together, or how does that work out? And so that is a sort of a little bit nebulous, and these are two big players in the lithium space. So that's why the market really took a negative turn. But for us, it's actually, from Weld Minerals, I think it's a very positive move, because now we're moving forward. And if you look at Lithium Americas in Argentina, they have 49-51 with a Chinese company. Yeah. Well, Lithium Americas has a market cap of $4 billion or whatever it is. So it's not hurting Lithium Americas to have 49%. Yeah. So 49% of something is way better than 100% of nothing. That was my, so.
Can you, is it going to be challenging at all to get financing around these projects with the new rules?
No. There's so much money floating around for new green projects. Lithium is one of those new green metals that's changing the world. So, and this is also partially the reason why we're in Europe here. We have FLSmidth, which is a Danish company. So we've been having discussions with German companies, let's say, for offtake negotiations. So once you become a little bit more German, then you have access to that huge capital that sits here for new green ideas, and there's funds all over the place, and there are government sort of instituted funds that exist here. So there won't be any. People come to us all the time. When you go to production, we'll give you the money.
Now, Henk, just also regarding these regulations and President Boric, do you think that these rules are going to have sticking power right now? There's kind of a mixed reaction to them. And you've mentioned the number of regimes that have actually gone through the presidency in Chile right now. Do you think that these are the rules that are set and they're going to last?
No, I think they're going to get watered down. Already, he's already said, and people have ignored that some of these salars they have are strategic, and some of them are not strategic. So, for instance, Ollagüe is not a strategic salar for the government. So this 49-51 does maybe not apply at all in a non-strategic salar. So that it's got to come out of the wash somewhere. But we're talking about 51-49 in the Ollagüe salar. But in the end, we may not actually have a 49-51 deal on that. But the Atacama for sure is strategic. Yeah, it's going to be the number one producer, or is the number one producer in the world already. And the production is going up. And our piece of that salar, we could produce 200,000 tons of lithium carbonate out of our piece, which is not small, but, so it will be by far the largest production place in the world. So it's obviously very strategic for the government. Yeah.
Now, the focus around Wealth Minerals has been doing direct lithium extraction and then getting away from brine operations. Maybe explain first what the problem is with brine operations and what you hope to achieve with DLE.
Well, the brine. So when you're in the brine operations, current operations, you basically, they've been there for 30 years. So in the olden days, nobody looked at anything, but you pump the brine into evaporation ponds, you evaporate off the liquids, and then you basically waste 90 blah 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 percent of the brine, the water, the liquid in the salar. So it's becoming an issue. Obviously the water levels are being pushed down. So that was always, from our side, it was always obvious that the government is never going to allow. And Chile, not so much in Argentina, but in Chile, you're in one of the driest regions in the world. The Atacama Salar is one of the driest places in the world. So evaporating water is obviously not a promotable story. Yeah? Direct lithium extraction has two things. It doesn't use very much water. It will use a little bit.
Yeah.
But it will recover, let's say, 90+% of the lithium, while evaporation barely gets 50%. So you're wasting 50% of the lithium. It just stays there. It's so this is a much better, but much better technology, and also it's instantaneous. While evaporation takes 12, 18 months before the process is concluded. Yeah, so you're sitting there waiting for depending on where you are, it's probably longer in Argentina. So this new direct lithium extraction. The only problem with direct lithium extraction is that it's not working on a commercial scale, other than there is a operation in China supposedly producing 10,000 tons a year of lithium carbonate in a direct lithium extraction technology. So it's, and now there is at least 3 new direct lithium extraction projects in Argentina going ahead.
Now, the deal that you did with previously ThyssenKrupp, which became FLSmidth, because that was a deal that was done last year, do they have any experience around DLE, or why were they chosen?
They have a technology, FLSmidth, which have taken over. Yeah. They have a technology center in Utah, and they have done a lot of studies on direct lithium extraction, and so they do have quite a good background in the technology. So we're kind of relying on them to, go through the motions and identifying which technology comes out of the woodwork. It started off with about 14 technologies, then we're down to about 4 now. So, and of which we may pick 1 or 2. We may not just pick 1. We pay maybe a combination of 2.
Now, also, it seems like there's a lot of companies that are kind of in-housing this, because I think like SQM and Albemarle, they're kind of like doing a DLE hybrid, or they're like looking at ways of actually reducing, the evaporation methods. And then also there's Rio Tinto with its Rincon, I believe in Argentina, which is like doing a DLE as well too. Any chance in terms of partnering with those people, or?
Yeah, funny. Maybe, but you have to watch a little bit, because some of these, people go down the path of these technologies, and then if you listen to the company, then they're always the best technology out there. Yeah. But in reality, you don't really want to take a chance on. If you sign up with one, then you're married to that technology. Yeah. So we've been sort of taking the other road and say, let's just look at all of the stuff, and don't fall into the arms of somebody. But at some point we will have that, and Rio Tinto and Rincon. They have lots of money and obviously lots of talent. So I would suspect that at some point Rio Tinto will figure out a way to make that work. Yeah, I'm not so sure that they have today, but a company like that, there's enough incentives and there's enough money being thrown out there on this technology that somewhere that mousetrap will work. And as I said, we had a deal with a company called Rosatom before, the Russian nuclear company, and they were the ones that actually had that technology that's now operational in China. So they were the ones that were going to provide the technology and also the money to put it into production. And then, of course, unfortunately for us, or fortunately, whatever in the end happens, but Mr. Putin, of course, decided to, to sharpen his arms skills in Ukraine, and that was kind of the end of the relationship for us. So we now, then ThyssenKrupp and now FLSmidth came in, and I think that was a good way. That was a very good way for us to go forward. That made imminent sense.
There has been a lot of interest. There has been a lot of resources. You see people that have been coming from the precious metal side and they've been going into the lithium business as well. Are there any companies out there, or are there any businesses that you've looked at the way in terms of that they've organized themselves, that you're benchmarking yourself against Wealth Minerals in terms of the way that they looked at the sector, the way that they advanced what they were doing? Because you have so many options in terms of like the JVs that you can do, or the ways that you can advance the project. What do you look at in terms of where you want to get?
We really, what we're looking at is really doing a deal with an off-taker, let's say, whatever that's, and I've been focusing on Europe, not so much China, because of the ESG situation that you have to deal with. And the European, let's just say car manufacturers, for instance, they're very, very concerned about ESG, focused on that. And I think that will resonate, obviously, with the current government in Chile. They really do want you to worry about the environment and the indigenous and that stuff. So that combination. So for us, it's actually moving forward. At some point, we will, do an offtake or whatever with a battery car company or something like that.
Henk, I think that the lithium sector is quite different from the precious metal sector because there's a lot of big giants. There's a lot of consolidation in comparison to the gold sector, which is a lot more disparate, I would say.
It's the lithium sector is actually relatively new. Yeah. So you have many small players in that sector, and obviously in the end, like most industries, we started out with 100 car companies and we're down to 5, or pick a number. So the lithium space is going to see the same consolidation, and really there is enormous amounts of interest from large companies, because lithium is going to be a very critical part of this whole future going forward. So I would say that people can't afford to have all these small companies running around doing things or not doing things. In the end, there will be several large lithium companies operating in this space.
Lastly, Henk, next 12 months at Wealth Minerals.
Well, in the next 12 months, we should have all the pumping tests done in Ollagüe. Then the PEA will have that done. So we'll start picking out a pilot plant going forward. So that will be the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. And also we're dealing with the indigenous in the Atacama right now, and obviously we don't know who's going to be our partner there, but assuming Codelco by what we hear, and start drilling the Atacama, because to date we have not drilled a hole there, even though SQM plunked one right next to us. So the geophysical anomaly works very nicely into our ground, and it's reasonably high grade, as we well know. But for us to get a few drill holes in there is obviously what we need to do. Yeah.
Henk, thanks for speaking with Kitco.
Thank you very much for having me.
My name is Michael McCoy with Kitco Mining here at Deutsche Goldmesse in Frankfurt, Germany.
Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Deutsche Goldmesse is brought to you by Defiance Silver.